The Galactic Council chamber was unlike anything humanity had ever stood inside. The ceiling was a shifting storm of light and color, swirling with the energy of 1,000 suns. Vast tiers of alien delegates filled the circular arena, each representing a world, an empire, or an entire species. Some were crystalline forms that refracted light like living prisms. Others were scaled, multi-eyed beings whose voices echoed through vibrating membranes. Each delegate turned toward the small central platform, where a single human stood alone under a cone of light. Ambassador Nolan Reyes stood straight, his simple black suit reflecting faint glimmers from the surrounding energy fields. Behind him, 2 council guards, towering insectoid creatures clad in translucent armor, watched his every move. Across the platform, on an elevated throne of silver vines, sat the High Speaker of the Galactic Council, its form shifting like liquid glass. The speaker's voice rolled across the chamber in perfect translation. Ambassador of Sol, you stand before the highest authority of the galaxy, accused of planetary aggression, resource theft, and refusal to comply with the Expansion Limitation Act. Do you deny these charges? Nolan did not flinch. He lifted his eyes slowly, meeting the Council's collective gaze, or what passed for it among 1,000 species. His calm tone cut through the noise like a blade. Humanity does not deny expansion. We only deny permission. The chamber erupted with uproar. Dozens of alien tongues shouted at once, some clicking, some roaring, some humming in deep tones that shook the air. The Council's translation system struggled to keep up. Accusations of arrogance and threats of annihilation echoed. But Nolan waited, hands clasped behind his back, eyes steady. The High Speaker raised a translucent hand and the chamber fell silent. Humanity has crossed forbidden borders, it said. You established colonies in unregistered systems, defied embargoes, and ignored 3 official summons to withdraw. The Council views this as an act of defiance. Defiance, Nolan replied softly, is what you call survival when someone else is making the rules. Gasps rolled through the tiers. A delegate from the Thraxis Dominion slammed its armored claws against the railing, shouting, "You speak of survival while you arm yourselves with weapons that could tear stars apart." Nolan turned toward the Thraxis representative. You mean the weapons your fleets used against us first? You bombed our colony on Vega 4 because we refused to mine your metals for free. The alien roared in protest, but Nolan kept speaking. You call this council a peacekeeper, but to us it looks more like a cage with velvet bars. The High Speaker leaned forward. You dare accuse this council of tyranny? I don't accuse, Nolan said. I remind. Every eye, every lens, every biological sensor locked on the human. There was something unnerving in his tone, too calm, too measured, as if he knew more than he should. The speaker's voice hardened. Your world is young, your reach reckless. The council offered guidance and you spat upon it. Do you understand what this means? Nolan met its gaze. Yes, he said. It means you're afraid of us. A chilling silence followed. Even the air seemed to stop vibrating. The speaker's shimmering form darkened as its surface cooled into a dull gray. Fear, it repeated. We are the galaxy's law. We do not fear. We correct. The light above Nolan intensified and the sound of humming energy filled the chamber. The guard stepped closer. You stand condemned, representative of Earth, the speaker declared. Your people are hereby stripped of recognition. You will be erased from the galactic registry, and your species will face enforcement action. The council votes for extermination. 1,000 hands, claws, and tendrils rose. The chamber's energy core pulsed with bright light. The vote was unanimous. Humanity was to be erased. Nolan did not plead. He simply looked upward as if seeing through the ceiling into the void beyond. You think killing me will silence Earth? The speaker's form brightened. It will serve as a warning. Nolan smiled faintly. Warnings work only if the ones warned can still listen. The guards moved in. A beam of golden energy struck Nolan in the chest. His body disintegrated in an instant. No ashes, no remains, just light fading into silence. The speaker turned to address the chamber. Let this be an example, it said. The humans have been judged. The council applauded, the thunderous sound of self-righteous unity echoing through the vast hall. Outside, galactic channels began broadcasting the event across thousands of worlds. The message was clear. Humanity had been eliminated from galactic diplomacy. But far away, in the quiet orbit of Earth, another audience was watching, deep beneath the surface of the moon. Inside an underground command vault, A dozen figures stood before a wall of holographic feeds. They had seen every second of the execution, transmitted through hidden systems no alien sensor had detected. The room was silent except for the steady hum of machines. General Mira Lang stared at the frozen image of the council chamber, Nolan's last moment before the beam hit. "They did it," she said softly. A voice answered her from the console beside her. "Directive confirmed. Envoy terminated. Authorization code transfers unlocked." She exhaled slowly. "Then we proceed." Another officer turned, eyes wide. "Ma'am, are we really activating it?" Lang didn't look away from the screen. "You heard his final words. It's time." She pressed her palm against the console. Alarms began flashing in red across every system in the command vault. The words Extermination Protocol Level Omega appeared on the holographic displays. Across the solar system, dormant satellites flickered to life. Old orbital stations began shifting position, revealing hidden launch ports. Entire sections of the moon's crust opened like mechanical petals, revealing sleek black ships that had never been listed in any official record. Humanity had been preparing for this day, not to start a war, but to end one before it began. On Mars, underground colonies sealed their domes. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, vast hangars lit up, their waters boiling as starships rose to the surface. Every hidden base, every secret project built under false research names came alive. In Earth's orbit, the first warship fleet decloaked, 1,000 vessels, all carrying the mark of the Terran Directorate. No communication, no broadcast, just silent readiness. General Lang's voice echoed through the control room. "Transmit the message to all systems." The communications officer nodded, initiating the signal. Across every human colony, every ship, every outpost, a short-coded transmission played. "This is Earth Command. Diplomatic protocol terminated. Stand by for activation of Extermination Protocol." At the same time, alien channels filled with panic. Their sensors detected massive power readings from Sol. The Council believed humanity broken, mourning, too primitive to retaliate. They had no idea that every human network had gone dark for a reason. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, the High Speaker received a report from its aides. "Energy surge detected in the Sol system," one said. "Possibly reactor instability." "Dismiss it," the Speaker replied. "The humans are finished." But even as it spoke, the stars outside the Council's homeworld flickered. Somewhere beyond the reach of their sensors, light twisted unnaturally. Space itself rippled as if something enormous were emerging from behind the fabric of the void. Back on Earth, the fleet engines roared to life. Generals stood in silence, watching as the ships vanished into the dark. General Lang looked up at the main screen, where the last image of Nolan Reyes still hovered, a man standing alone before the galaxy. Unbowed, he gave them a chance, she said quietly. They chose war. The stars beyond Earth brightened as the fleet jumped. Humanity's response had begun, and the galaxy would soon learn that even a single human's death could awaken the wrath of an entire world. In the endless silence of space, a faint transmission echoed toward the heart of the Council's empire. "This is Earth. Judgment received." The Galactic Council chamber pulsed with restless energy. Thousands of alien delegates filled the tiers, their eyes fixed on the floating hologram at the center of the vast dome. The image showed the Sol system, with Earth glowing faintly among the stars. The Council's speaker, a tall crystalline being named Olinar, stood in the main ring surrounded by the lights of 10,000 translators. The air shimmered with tension. "After the destruction of the human envoy," Olinar declared, "we expected surrender. Instead, all communication from Earth has ceased." No signals, no trade, no traffic. Murmurs filled the chamber. Delegates of 100 species hissed, clicked, and whispered in alarm. The Andrixi representative slammed its tail against the metal floor. "You cannot silence a species that quickly. Perhaps they are preparing something." The speaker's translucent eyes turned to its aides. "Report." A young analyst, a thin being with light-skinned membranes, spoke with a quivering voice. "Counselor, our probes near the Sol system are being destroyed." One by one. No sign of who or what is responsible. Our last signal shows unknown structures on the moon and under Earth's oceans. The entire chamber fell quiet. The light from the hologram flickered as data streams ran wild across the display. "Unknown structures?" the speaker repeated slowly. "Yes," the analyst said. "They appear to be manufacturing facilities. Gigantic ones." Olinar stared at the image of Earth. "Impossible." Humanity doesn't have the resources for that scale. But deep inside the silent blue planet, the truth was already moving. Under the surface of the Pacific Ocean, massive hangar doors opened. Dark metal ships glided upward, silent and gleaming. Hundreds of vessels rose from hidden bases, breaking through the waves, their engines igniting with blue fire. The sea boiled, the air trembled, and clouds spiraled as each ship took to the sky. From the icy craters of the moon, other fleets launched. Enormous vessels that had been hidden for decades activated their thrusters, lighting up the black void. They moved with precision, each one following strict coordinates fed by an artificial intelligence buried deep beneath Earth's crust. Commander Leon Ward stood in the main control chamber of the Earth Defense Network, her uniform plain and unmarked. Around her, officers worked in silence, their faces lit by data displays showing the rapid deployment of fleets. "Status of Project Sentinel?" she asked. "Online," a technician replied. "Fleet 1 is leaving lunar orbit. Fleet 2 rising from the Indian Ocean. All units reporting full readiness." Ward's eyes were fixed on the holographic map. She could see every human ship as a glowing point of light. "Initiate dark communication protocol," she said. "No transmissions, no traces. They must not know where we're going." "Yes, Commander." Ward leaned closer to the screen, her voice quiet. "The Council thinks we'll beg for peace. Let them believe that a little longer." Back at the Galactic Council, panic was spreading. The delegates shouted across languages, accusing one another of conspiracies. The speaker raised its crystalline hand for silence. "Order, maintain order. The humans have limited power. They can hide, but they cannot resist forever." A representative from the Illyri Dominion rose slowly, its translucent wings shaking. "You do not understand them," it said. "Humans learn. They adapt. When we crushed their first colony on Vega 4, they built 10 more in places no one expected. When we cut their supply routes, they started mining their own stars." "They are reckless," Olinar argued. "They are patient," the Illyri replied. "And now they are quiet. That is what should terrify you." For a long moment no one spoke. Then the chamber doors opened. A courier rushed in, breathless, holding a glowing tablet. "Message from the observation fleet near Sol." Olinar gestured for it to be played. The chamber lights dimmed. A projection flickered to life, showing a star field. At first nothing seemed unusual. Then the stars shifted. Space itself rippled, and shapes began to emerge from the dark. Ships. Hundreds of them. The recording shook violently before cutting to static. The courier's voice trembled. "That was 30 minutes ago. Then..." Silence. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates screamed across rows, demanding answers, demanding fleets, demanding action. The speaker turned to its generals. "Mobilize all regional defenses. Prepare the core fleets." "Yes, Speaker," the commanders replied, rushing out of the chamber. But humanity's strategy was already in motion. In the shadows of Jupiter's orbit, human warships began linking into formation. Their hulls absorbed radar and light, appearing as dark silhouettes against the stars. Each ship bore no emblem, no broadcast signal, only the faint blue glow of engines ready to strike. Aboard the flagship Horizon Spear, Admiral Cale Anders stood at the viewing deck. The planet below reflected faint light onto the hull. His crew moved with precision, their expressions focused and silent. "Are all systems green?" he asked. "Yes, Admiral." "The fleets are aligned, awaiting final synchronization with Earth Command." "Then begin transmission," he ordered. A coded pulse traveled across the fleet, invisible to alien sensors. It reached Earth, passing through layers of encrypted networks until it reached the DeepNet core. There, the artificial intelligence named Atlas processed it in milliseconds and sent a simple confirmation. Operation Extermination Protocol was officially active. Anders turned toward his officers. "Set coordinates for the Council's capital world." A young pilot hesitated. "Sir, the Council homeworld is in the central protected zone. If we..." Anders cut him off gently. "We won't fire first. We'll make them see us." The fleet shifted, engines igniting in synchronized light. One by one, the ships vanished into hyperspace corridors, leaving only the empty silence of deep space behind. At the same time, on Earth, every civilian broadcast stopped. The planet's surface seemed to go dark from orbit. City lights dimmed as power was redirected to defense grids. The world had gone quiet, united in purpose. Commander Ward watched the energy readings rise on her screen. Every nation, every outpost, every satellite, she said softly. We're no longer separate. We're one planet now. She looked around the control room. The officer stood still, waiting for her command. Send the signal, she said. Let them know we're coming. Moments later, across the galaxy, communications channels picked up a single repeating message from the Sol system. It wasn't a distress call. It wasn't a plea. It was a countdown. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, alarms blared. The walls shook as incoming data overwhelmed their sensors. The speaker tried to maintain control, shouting over the chaos. Identify the signal. What is it? A terrified aide shouted from the console. It's human. A timed code. It's counting down from 6 hours. Olinar's crystal form dimmed as realization spread. They're not retreating. They're coming here. The chamber descended into panic. Fleets were scrambled. Planetary shields activated and emergency evacuations began across the core worlds. Still, the countdown echoed through every system, unstoppable. Meanwhile, far beyond the reach of the Council's sensors, the human fleet drifted in absolute silence. The ships moved like a single organism, engines cold, weapons armed but hidden. On the bridge of the Horizon Spear, Admiral Anders stared at the stars. They think we'll strike their armies, he said quietly. They're wrong. We're going for their heart. The countdown reached 5 hours. The Council sent diplomatic pleas, promising to reconsider humanity's sentence, to reopen communication. No response came. On Earth, Commander Ward stood before a massive window overlooking the planet's horizon. The blue glow of the atmosphere reflected on her face. They called us primitive, she whispered. Now they'll see how long we've been listening. The countdown reached 4 hours. Across the galaxy, power grids flickered. Data relays overloaded. Every network the Council controlled began to fail. The human AI had already reached them. Admiral Anders watched the last signal from the Council fade. No more debates, he said. Prepare to arrive on target. The fleet surged forward into slipspace, vanishing in streaks of light. The galaxy trembled, and the Council's capital world darkened under a growing shadow. The humans were coming, and no one could stop them now. The Galactic Council chamber shimmered with tension. It was the same colossal place where humanity had once stood small beneath the eyes of thousands of alien civilizations. Now, the same hall was filled with unease. Delegates shifted in their seats, whispering in fear as the holographic display above them showed a single terrifying sight. Hundreds of unidentified ships appearing at the edge of their capital system. The Speaker of the Council, Olinar, stood motionless, his crystalline form dimming and brightening in nervous pulses. These ships do not match any known configuration, a military officer announced. No broadcasts, no identification codes. They move in formation, human formation. A cold silence spread across the chamber. The representatives of dozens of species began to murmur. The image expanded, showing the black, angular shapes of human warships sliding silently through the void. Their hulls reflected no light. Their movements were too precise, too calm. The speaker's voice was heavy. They dare come here, after being judged? One alien delegate shouted, "Activate the planetary defense grid." Another screamed, "Destroy them before they get close," but the human fleet did not fire. They only drifted closer, each ship adjusting in perfect synchrony. Then, suddenly, all communication systems across the Council's homeworld went dark. Every channel filled with static. Navigation systems failed. The massive defense satellites lost connection to their control centers. "Electronic interference," a technician yelled. "Something is overriding our systems. No, replacing them." In orbit above the planet, the humans began transmitting a signal. A voice, calm and clear, spoke across every frequency. "This is Earth Command. Diplomatic protocol terminated. Stand by for enforcement." The voice was not angry. It was not loud. It was simply absolute. In the chamber, panic spread like wildfire. The speaker slammed his hand on the control node. "Mobilize the core fleet. Now." Within moments, thousands of alien ships began to rise from the planet's atmosphere, forming defensive rings around the capital. Each ship represented centuries of technological advancement, the power of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. The aliens believed themselves untouchable. They believed humanity would crumble before them. But when the first alien ship opened fire, everything changed. The beams of plasma struck the nearest human vessel and passed straight through it. The alien commanders froze in confusion. The image of the human ship flickered. It wasn't real. It was a projection. "Decoys," one shouted. "There, out there." Before they could react, the true human fleet appeared from behind their moon, decloaking in silence. Missiles launched, moving faster than light. They didn't explode. They disappeared into the hulls of alien ships, and milliseconds later, the ships tore themselves apart from within. The aliens had never seen weapons like these. They weren't simple explosives. They were intelligent, learning weapons, adapting to every countermeasure instantly. The galactic fleet broke formation. Some tried to flee. Others fired blindly into the dark. But the humans were invisible, hidden behind their own energy fields. Each shot they fired was calculated with terrifying precision. From the command ship Horizon Spear, Admiral Cale Anders watched through the glass. His hands rested calmly behind his back as explosions bloomed across the enemy lines. His officers awaited orders, but Anders did not speak for several seconds. He was watching something no human had ever seen before: the fall of the galaxy's greatest power. "Target the command relays," he said at last. "No more central coordination." "Confirmed," replied his tactical officer. Seconds later, the alien fleets began collapsing. Without their command network, their formations fell apart. Entire wings of ships collided with each other as their guidance systems shut down. The human ships moved through them like ghosts, leaving trails of destruction. On the planet below, the council chamber shook as explosions echoed in the sky. Alarms blared. Delegates screamed and ran for the exits, but the speaker remained. "How?" he muttered. "How can they do this?" A holographic transmission appeared in the air before him. It was a human face. Admiral Anders. His eyes were calm, his voice even. "Speaker Olinar," he said, "the time for judgment is over. You condemned a people who only wanted peace. Now you'll see what fear truly is." The speaker's voice trembled. "You are destroying thousands of worlds' hope for unity." Anders shook his head. "No. We're destroying your illusion of control." The transmission cut off. Moments later, an enormous human weapon fired from orbit. It didn't explode. It released a pulse that rippled across the planet's surface, shutting down every defense, every ship, every weapon. The aliens watched in horror as their power vanished. In the streets below the chamber, citizens looked to the sky and saw fire. Massive human ships broke through the clouds, descending slowly, their hulls glowing with pale blue light. They did not land. They hovered like silent judges watching from above. Inside the chamber, Olinar turned to his aides. "Evacuate the council." But before they could move, the entire building shook. The energy fields collapsed. The lights dimmed. And then, as the ceiling cracked, the chamber's holographic display flickered back to life, showing the human fleet surrounding their planet completely. One delegate whispered, "It's over." In orbit, Admiral Anders received the report. "The Council's capital is neutralized, sir. No resistance remains." Anders looked toward the central planet. "They called this place the heart of civilization," he said. "Now it will remember what humanity looks like." His communications officer turned. "Sir, should we begin the bombardment?" Anders hesitated. For a moment, his expression softened. "No, not yet. Let them understand first." He turned back to the screen. "Broadcast the message." Across the galaxy, every channel lit up again. The humans had taken control of the entire communication network. On every world, in every system, the same transmission appeared. A single image of Earth and a single voice speaking in a dozen languages. "This is Earth Command. The Galactic Council's authority has ended. We do not seek your destruction but your obedience. Those who raise arms against us will be erased. Those who surrender will survive." The message repeated, unstoppable, untraceable. In the council chamber, Olinar slumped in defeat. Around him, the delegates sat in silence, their faces dim under the fading lights. "They will rule the stars," whispered one alien quietly, "just as we once ruled them." Outside, the human fleet began moving again. Their ships positioned themselves in perfect formation, encircling the planet like a ring of steel. From the horizon sphere, Admiral Anders watched the tactical map. "Prepare to disarm their fleets," he said. "Yes, sir." The human ships unleashed electromagnetic pulses that deactivated every alien engine, leaving thousands of vessels drifting helplessly in space. The humans didn't need to destroy them. They had already won. In the silence that followed, Anders spoke quietly to his officers. "They thought execution would end us. Instead, they taught us unity. That was their last mistake." He turned, back toward the stars, watching as the glow of the planet below dimmed. "Send word to Earth," he said. "Tell them the Council has fallen." As the horizon spear's engines powered down, the stars outside reflected in Anders's eyes. There was no joy, no anger, only a calm certainty. Humanity had arrived at the center of the galaxy not as a petitioner, but as the new authority. Below, in the ruins of the Council City, Olinar watched the human ships move across the sky like silent storms. For the first time in centuries, the Speaker of the Galactic Council bowed his head, not in ceremony, but in surrender, and above him, the cold human voice returned one last time. "This is Earth Command, judgment delivered." The chamber of the Galactic Council was no longer filled with the usual pomp and confidence. The once serene walls that gleamed with cosmic light now echoed with quiet unease. The counselors, beings from every corner of the galaxy, whispered in dozens of languages, their eyes flicking to the empty place where the human envoy once stood. Hours ago, that place had been occupied by Ambassador Hale, Earth's calm, confident representative. Now it was silent, marked only by a faint scorch from the energy blast that had ended him. At the center of the hall, the Council's High Speaker, a towering crystalline being named Vrelion, struck the dais with its staff. "Order," it commanded, its voice rippling through the vast chamber. The execution of the human envoy was lawful. Humanity defied our protocols, withheld crucial data about their military buildup, and refused to comply with trade disarmament demands. This was justice, not aggression. But the room remained uneasy. No one truly believed it would end there. The humans were silent, too silent. The envoy's death had been broadcast live to the galaxy. Earth had not replied. No messages, no ships, just an unnerving quiet that felt like a storm waiting beyond the stars. The doors to the chamber burst open. Every delegate turned. A young officer in a gray uniform stood at the threshold, her voice trembling as she shouted, "High Speaker, we just intercepted an encoded signal, Origin Point Sol System. It's marked as Priority 1 and it's addressed to the Council itself." A ripple of tension filled the room. The transmission was projected above the chamber. Static flared, then stabilized, revealing a single figure. The face of Earth's Defense Commander, Admiral Rowan. His expression was calm, but his eyes were cold. "This message," Rowan began, his tone sharp and controlled, "is the final communication from Earth to the Galactic Council." The delegates leaned forward, some in disbelief, some in dread. "You have violated diplomatic immunity," he continued. "You executed an unarmed envoy on neutral ground. You declared that humanity must obey or perish. In response, Earth has invoked Extermination protocol." Gasps and roars erupted across the chamber. Verlion's voice cracked through the uproar. "Extermination? You dare threaten the Council? You are one world among thousands." Rowan's gaze didn't waver. "You mistake our silence for weakness. You mistake our restraint for fear. But humanity does not kneel. You targeted our diplomat. You broke the oldest law of contact. And now every fleet within Earth Command is under new directive. Effective immediately. All hostile Council installations within operational range will be neutralized." The feed cut. Silence reigned. Then chaos. The insectoid delegate from the Karthus horde hissed, "Neutralized? What is their range?" The avian representative from Talarian shrieked, "They cannot strike us!" Earth is centuries behind. Others demanded military assessments, shouting over one another. The chamber had never seen such disarray. High Speaker Verlion slammed the dais again. Silence. But even as it spoke, a tremor passed through the station. The great hall flickered, the lights dimmed. One of the aides screamed as the holographic map of nearby sectors came to life. Red markers began appearing. First 1, then 5, then hundreds, fleet signatures, unknown configuration, no identification codes. Impossible, murmured a reptilian general. Those are warship signals. Near the frontier colonies? The chamber's walls vibrated again as another alert flared, this one from the Council's outer surveillance ring. A voice stammered through the comms. Massive objects detected exiting hyperspace near the Lyris Gate. They're human vessels. Thousands of them. Vrelion's crystalline form flickered with disbelief. They cannot. No species could produce a fleet of that magnitude in secrecy, but the reports kept coming. Earth's warships were not sleek like those of the Council's fleets. They were brutal, angular, built for endurance and overwhelming firepower. Their hulls bore no decorative crests, no banners of empire, only matte black metal with a single insignia, a blue-white sphere, half-shadowed, ringed with the word Earth Force. In the viewing bay, the first visual feed showed one of the ships, a colossal dreadnought, engines burning bright like a second sun. Its size dwarfed the largest vessels the Council possessed. It carried rail cannons along its spine, plasma batteries glowing like veins of molten fire. The silence in the chamber deepened as everyone realized what that meant. The humans hadn't been preparing for diplomacy. They had been preparing for war. Meanwhile, on the Earth Command flagship, Admiral Rowan stood before a projection of the Council's star map. Around him, officers monitored dozens of battle groups. "Keep communications silent," he ordered. "Target only military installations and Council weapon platforms. Do not engage civilian systems unless fired upon." His second officer, a woman named Vega, frowned. "Admiral, do you think they'll surrender before it reaches their core sectors?" Rowan looked out toward the holographic stars. "The Council believes fear keeps peace. Let them see what real fear looks like." Back in the Council chamber, panic spread. Delegates shouted at one another, some demanding retaliation, others begging for negotiations. Vrelion stood frozen, shimmering in confusion and disbelief. "The humans," it whispered. "They can't possibly mean to—" A blinding pulse cut the chamber feed. The orbital defense network above the Council's capital world flickered, then went dark. In orbit, Council patrols scrambled as explosions erupted across the defense ring. Human ships emerged from folded space like blades through the void, firing in synchronized volleys that ripped through the outer fleet lines. The Galactic Council, an authority that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, was being struck. For the first time in its history, alarms screamed across the planet as civilian transports fled. The Council tried to raise its fleets, but human coordination was perfect. Their ships didn't rely on centralized command. They moved like living entities, fast, decisive, ruthless. Every strike was calculated, every withdrawal deliberate. In the chaos, one Council aide whispered to another, trembling, "How did they do this? We watched them. We monitored their technology. They shouldn't have been capable of this." The other aide swallowed hard. "Maybe that's the problem. We watched, but we never understood them." The High Speaker's voice rose over the confusion. "Evacuate the primary chambers. Signal all sector fleets. Humanity has declared extermination. They intend to destroy us all." But deep down, many of the Council's delegates already knew the truth. Humanity didn't need to destroy them. They only needed to prove a point that they could. That the Council's age of dominance was over. As the station trembled under the distant thunder of orbital bombardment, one of the oldest Council historians whispered to himself, "We thought them small because their world was small. We thought them primitive because they spoke softly. Now we see they were never weak, only waiting." The chamber lights flickered again as the central holo display came alive one last time. A message appeared in human language, simple and clear. Extermination Protocol Phase 1. Council Command Neutralization. Phase 2. Pending. Outside the window, Earth's warships cut through the darkness like a storm unleashed. The galaxy's era of peace had ended, and the name of Earth would never again be spoken with contempt, only fear. The chamber of the Galactic Council was no longer the grand, shimmering place it had once been. Its walls, once bright with cosmic light, were now cracked and darkened by smoke. The floor trembled with each distant explosion from orbit. The Council, thousands of alien species that had ruled the galaxy for centuries, sat in silence. Their fleets had been shattered, their command stations reduced to drifting debris, and their colonies now dark and isolated. Only a few members remained in the central hall, too stunned to speak. The High Speaker, Vrelion, stood before the great dais, the crystalline patterns on its body flickering dimly. Around it, shattered screens displayed the same message broadcast to every corner of the known galaxy. Extermination Protocol Phase 2. Council neutralization complete. Awaiting directive, Earth Command. The air was thick with fear. No one dared to move or speak. Then, the massive doors to the chamber opened. A single figure stepped through. The sound of boots echoed sharply on the marble floor. A human, a tall man in dark armor with the insignia of Earth Force, walked toward the center. Behind him, two soldiers followed in silence, their expressions unreadable beneath their helmets. Vrelion's crystalline face flickered with faint light. "You have no right to be here," it said, though its voice trembled. "This is the heart of galactic law. You are trespassing." The man stopped at the base of the dais. His voice was calm, steady, but carried the kind of power that silenced the room. "Law," he said. "You lost the right to speak of law the moment you murdered our envoy." The delegates shifted uneasily. The name of that envoy, Ambassador Hale, had already become legend among the humans. The Council had thought his death would humble Earth. Instead, it had awakened something far greater. The man continued, "I am Commander Drake of Earth Force. By order of the United Earth Directorate, the Galactic Council is hereby disbanded. Effective immediately, all military assets are to be surrendered, and all Council members are placed under observation." Vrelion's voice cracked. "You cannot, this is tyranny. You are a single species among thousands. You cannot possibly hope to rule the stars." Drake's eyes met its glowing form. "We don't seek to rule. We seek justice. You thought you could eliminate us because we were quiet, because we didn't interfere. You thought humans were primitive, emotional, divided, but you never understood us. When you killed our envoy, you united us." He gestured to the large holo display that hung broken above the chamber. It flickered to life, showing a map of the galaxy. Red marks glowed across it, every one representing a destroyed Council fleet, base, or fortress. "This is not conquest," Drake said quietly. "This is consequence." Outside, a distant thunder rolled through the sky as one of the last orbital defense platforms fell, consumed in a bright explosion. The light washed through the cracked glass ceiling of the chamber, casting human shadows across the alien faces. A small, trembling voice rose from among the delegates. It belonged to a thin, blue-skinned scholar. "Why didn't you speak before? Why didn't Earth reveal its strength until now?" Drake turned to him. "Because we didn't want this. For centuries we watched from our small corner of space. We learned, adapted, and waited. We came to your council peacefully. We offered diplomacy, cooperation, trade. You responded with arrogance, with demands, with executions. You thought you could erase us. Instead, you taught us to stop asking for permission." He stepped closer to the High Speaker. "Your empire is over." Vrelion's glow dimmed to a faint blue. "And what then, human? Will you destroy us all? Wipe out every species that defied you?" Drake shook his head. "No, humanity doesn't erase civilizations. We rebuild what you destroyed." He paused, looking around the hall. "But we will make sure the galaxy remembers what happens when power forgets its own limits." A deep rumble passed through the station again. The humans' flagship, the Eclipse of Dawn, had entered low orbit. Its presence filled the skies like a black sun. The Council chamber's windows darkened as the ship's massive hull eclipsed the star beyond. Vrelion looked up, its crystalline form reflecting the vast shadow. "You think this makes you gods?" Drake's reply was quiet, almost mournful. "No, it makes us survivors." The chamber's communication relays crackled as a transmission came through from the human flagship. "Commander Drake, this is Admiral Rowan. The Council's primary military structures have been neutralized. Awaiting your confirmation to commence reconstruction phase." Drake tapped the communicator on his wrist. "Understood. Phase 3 begins now. Secure all critical infrastructure. Any Council resistance is to be detained, not destroyed." He ended the transmission and turned to the assembly. "You're not our enemies anymore. But understand this, Earth will not be forgotten again." He turned to leave, his boots echoing through the ruined hall. The soldiers followed him in silence. As the doors closed behind them, Frelion looked at the other surviving counselors. "This cannot be the end," it whispered. "We must endure. We must learn." But deep inside, even it knew the truth. The Galactic Council had fallen, not by brute force alone, but by arrogance. In the days that followed, the entire galaxy shifted. Human fleets moved through the stars, not as conquerors, but as enforcers of a new order. They dismantled war factories, restored shattered colonies, and reconnected trade networks under Earth's oversight. The old empires crumbled, but peace, strange and fragile, began to take root again. Admiral Rowan watched from the bridge of the Eclipse of Dawn as thousands of signals filled the star map. "So this is how it begins," he murmured. Vega, his second officer, stepped beside him. "You mean ends?" He gave a small smile. "No, the Council's age ends. Humanity's age begins. But let's make sure it's one the galaxy can live with." Far below, the Galactic Council chamber stood silent. Only the faint hum of power remained. A single human flag now hung above the dais, white and blue with Earth's insignia glowing in the center. Beneath it, the Council's ancient motto remained carved into the stone. Through unity, strength. Someone had added new words beneath it. Through survival, peace. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy's future no longer belonged to the Council. It belonged to Earth, and to the species that had once been ignored, underestimated, and dismissed. Humanity had come to the stars not as conquerors, but as a warning that even the smallest world could rise, if pushed far enough and across the galaxy, from the far colonies of Andor to the deep systems of the Vask. Every civilization learned the same lesson. The quiet world they once dismissed had become the most powerful force in existence. The message that spread across the stars was simple, whispered in fear and awe alike. "The humans have spoken, and the galaxy will never be the same again."